I saw my girlfriend's sister full-on making out with a guy who was not her fiancé. In my coffee shop, in front of everyone. Let me back up. I'm 17, I work at a local coffee shop after school and weekends. It's a busy place, the kind where you're constantly wiping counters and calling out orders. That particular Saturday afternoon was slammed. I was behind the espresso machine, barely looking up when one of my coworkers nudged me and said, "Hey, check out table 4. They need a room, this is a coffee shop." I glanced over and froze. It was my girlfriend's sister. She's 24, engaged to a guy she's been with for years. Their wedding is set for July. But she was sitting in a corner booth wrapped around some other dude, not her fiancé. They were kissing like they were alone in a bedroom. His hand was in her hair, her leg was hooked over his. I felt sick. I ducked back behind the machine. I didn't want to be involved. I thought if I just ignored it, maybe it would go away. I kept my head down, worked the register, pretended I hadn't seen a thing. They left about 20 minutes later. I waited a bit, then went out to bust their table, thinking the coast was clear. I was wiping down the mess they'd left, napkins, a half-eaten muffin, when the door jingled again. She came back in, she looked panicked. She scanned the shop, and when her eyes landed on me, her whole face changed. She walked straight over, grabbed my arm, and whispered, "You saw me." I said, "I didn't see anything." She wasn't buying it. "You were staring, I saw you staring." "I was working, I didn't even notice you." But she knew. She kept asking, kept pressing, and I kept denying. Finally, she said, "This isn't over, we need to talk." Then she left. I stood there holding a wet rag, my heart pounding. I thought maybe I'd dodged it. Maybe she'd convinced herself I hadn't seen anything. Then my phone buzzed. It was my girlfriend. She texted, "What's going on with you and my sister? She's really upset. She says you need to come over." I stared at the screen. I didn't know what to say. I texted back, "I don't know what you're talking about." She replied immediately, "She's crying. She won't tell me why, just come over, please." I was trapped. I'm 17, I live with my parents, and I wasn't allowed to leave the house that night. I told her that. She said, "We'll drive to your house. Just sneak out and meet us." I said, "That's going to be really hard." She said, "Please." I didn't know what to do. I'm a kid. I never asked to be put in the middle of this. But now my girlfriend and her sister are demanding I meet them, and I have no idea what story the sister told. Did she confess? Did she accuse me of something? I'm scared. I don't want to ruin my girlfriend's family, but I also don't want to lie. My girlfriend keeps texting. I keep making excuses. But I know I can't avoid this forever. The sister saw me see her, and she's desperate. I don't know what to do. I sat in my room that night, phone in my hand, reading and rereading my girlfriend's messages. She was getting angry. "Why won't you just come? What's wrong? Why is my sister crying because of you?" I didn't respond. I turned off my phone. At school the next Monday, my girlfriend was cold. She wouldn't look at me. When I tried to talk to her at lunch, she said, "My sister told me everything." I said, "Told you what?" She said, "You threatened her." My stomach dropped. "What? No, I never threatened her." She said, "You saw her with some guy and you tried to blackmail her for money." I couldn't believe it. "It's not true." I didn't say a word to her. She was the one who came back and begged me not to tell. I said I didn't see anything. My girlfriend just stared at me. I don't know who to believe. That was when everything changed. I realized the sister had flipped it. She was trying to make me the bad guy so that if I ever told the truth, I'd look like a liar. I was just a teenager. She was a grown woman with a wedding coming up. Who would believe me? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said I saw her making out with a guy in the coffee shop. I didn't tell anyone, but she saw me see her and she's trying to cover it up. My girlfriend's face went pale. She walked away. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. It was the sister. She was crying, but it wasn't sad crying. It was angry. "If you tell anyone, I will destroy your reputation. I will tell everyone you tried to blackmail me. Your girlfriend will hate you. Your parents will be humiliated." I hung up. I sat on my bed, shaking. I thought I was overreacting. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut and let the wedding happen. But then I thought about the fiancé. He's a decent guy. He deserves to know the truth. And I thought about my girlfriend. If her sister can lie like this, what else has she lied about? I don't know what to do, but I know I can't ignore it anymore. I sat on my bed, shaking, and I knew I couldn't just let it go. But that wasn't the only cheating story I'd ever been dragged into. It's funny how one lie can unravel everything you thought you knew. A few years later, when I was older and married myself, I found myself in a different kind of mess. One where I was the parent trying to figure out if my own son was the father of his ex-girlfriend's baby. Let me tell you about that. It started with a phone call from the girl's parents. My son had just turned 16. He'd been dating this girl. She was 16 too, almost 17, for about 8 months. They broke up a month before we got the call. Her parents said she was pregnant, slightly showing, and the dates matched up with their relationship. My wife and I panicked. We sat our son down, told him gently, and he just said, "It's not mine, I never fucked her." Just like that, flat and sure. I didn't believe him at first. I knew he was sexually active. He'd even asked me for condoms before, which I gave him. But he kept insisting they never did it. He said he cheated on her. That's when I had a real heart-to-heart with him, and he admitted the whole truth. He'd been messing around with another girl, a boy actually. He wasn't just lying about the pregnancy, he was lying about his whole relationship. But on the pregnancy, he stuck to his story. He said they never had intercourse. He always wrapped up when he was with anyone, and he'd asked for restocks from me. He was adamant. My wife didn't believe him. She thought he was just trying to dodge responsibility. We had a meeting with both families. My wife started the conversation by accepting he was the father, talking about funding, custody options. My son spoke up angry, saying it wasn't his baby because they never had sex. Then he made a comment I'm not proud of. He said they only ever did a certain act that couldn't result in a pregnancy and it was so bad he never went further. I raged at him for that. But his ex-girlfriend admitted they rarely did anything physical, and she gave a specific date and place that matched a night he was at a friend's house. It was believable. I felt torn. I knew my son was a liar about the cheating, but I believed him about the baby. My wife was furious at me for siding with him. She said I was part of boy culture, that I was protecting him. We fought for days, then the ex-girlfriend's parents got a lawyer involved. They wanted a paternity test. My son agreed immediately. That made me more confident. But then the update came. My son finally confessed the whole truth to me privately. He had been seeing a boy from his soccer team for 6 months. That was the cheating. He never touched the girlfriend. He said she knew he was gay but didn't want to admit it. She'd been trying to trap him to stay in the closet. The paternity test came back negative. The baby wasn't his. The ex-girlfriend later admitted she'd slept with someone else after they broke up, but the dates were fuzzy. It was a mess. My wife was humiliated. She'd already told her whole family the boy was a deadbeat dad. She had to backtrack. My son came out to us that night. I hugged him. My wife didn't speak to him for a week. She said he'd ruined her reputation. I told her he didn't get someone pregnant. That's the win. But she was stuck on the lie. That whole experience made me realize how easy it is for a cheating accusation or a pregnancy to destroy families. It's not always the obvious story. Sometimes the cheater is the one trying to cover up their own secret, just like that sister at the coffee shop, and just like what happened to my best friend Sarah. I moved on from that, but then my own best friend tried to sabotage my marriage. Let me start from the beginning. My name is, well, let's just say I'm 29. I met my best friend Sarah when I was 11, right after my family moved to a new country. She was introduced to me by my sister-in-law. We became inseparable. For 18 years, I trusted her with everything. She was at my wedding. She held my baby when he was born. She was family. Then one Wednesday in November, my work trip got canceled due to a red weather alert. I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband left at 6 in the morning to flood-proof his business and was back by 7:30 making breakfast. It didn't even rain until 1 in the afternoon. I texted Sarah at 3 that I was home safe, and we didn't go out again until Saturday. Saturday morning at the gym, Sarah pulled me aside. She looked serious. We went to my car and she said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out. Your kid was in the car." I felt like the world dropped. But then I remembered I was home all day Wednesday. My husband was making me eggs. We watched cartoons with our son. I asked her 3 times, "Are you sure it was Wednesday?" She confirmed it 3 times. She even described a blonde woman, gorgeous, Barbie-like, and said my husband was all over her. I stared at her. I was home with him. We had breakfast. We never left. Her face went blank. She backtracked immediately. Oh, maybe it was a different day. I mix up days. But I knew she had just tried to destroy my marriage. I didn't scream. I just said, "Why would you lie?" She started crying, said she was just looking out for me, that she must have seen someone who looked like him. I drove home in a daze. When I told my husband, he was furious. He said she'd always been jealous of our relationship. I thought about all the times she'd made snide comments about my husband, about how I didn't have enough time for her. I confronted her later that week. She admitted she'd made it up because she wanted me to have more time to hang out like I used to when I was single. She thought if I divorced him, I'd be free to travel with her. I ended the friendship. It wasn't just a lie, it was a planned sabotage. She had the details ready. She'd thought it through. That kind of betrayal doesn't come from confusion. It comes from something dark. I still don't fully understand why she did it. Probably because she was lonely and she wanted me lonely too. But I'm not lonely. I have my husband, my son, and now I know who my real friends are. And I learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who will hurt you most. Just like that sister at the coffee shop, just like my son's ex-girlfriend. Cheating and lying, they don't happen in a vacuum. They happen because someone is willing to burn everything down to save themselves. My wife found out about the paternity test results before I did. She called me at work crying, saying the lawyer's office had emailed. The baby wasn't his. She kept saying, "I don't understand the dates, the timeline," like she was trying to find a way to still make it his. I told her it's over. He's not the father. She didn't speak to me for 2 days after that. When she finally did, it wasn't to apologize, it was to blame me. She said I'd poisoned her relationship with our son, that I made her look like a fool in front of both families. I reminded her that she was the one who told her whole side of the family he was a deadbeat dad. She was the one who called his ex-girlfriend's parents and offered to pay for everything. She'd even bought baby clothes. I found them in the guest room, all neatly folded, tags still on. My son came out to me that night. He confessed about the boyfriend. I hugged him and told him I loved him. He asked me not to tell his mother yet. I said okay. But the next morning my wife found a text on his phone from the boyfriend. She screamed. She came downstairs holding his phone saying, "What is this? Who is this boy?" He tried to grab it back. She wouldn't let go. I had to physically step between them. She said first he lies about a pregnancy, now he's lying about being straight. What's next? I said, he's not lying, this is who he is. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. You knew. You knew and you didn't tell me, I said. He asked me not to. She grabbed her keys and left. Didn't come back until midnight. When she got home, she went straight to bed without saying a word. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made breakfast, kissed our son on the forehead, asked him what he wanted for dinner. He looked at me like he was confused. I didn't know what to tell him. That was 6 months ago. Now she still doesn't talk about it. She's polite to the boyfriend when he comes over, but I see the way she looks at him, like he's the one who took her son away. She still hasn't apologized to our son for accusing him in front of everyone. I asked her to. She said, "He put us through hell. I'm not apologizing for trying to do the right thing. I don't know if we're going to make it, but at least the truth came out. That's more than some people get." I thought about that a lot after what happened with Sarah. Because sometimes the truth doesn't come out at all. Sometimes you just have to trust what you saw with your own eyes. Let me go back to November. Sarah and I had been best friends since I was 11. We moved to a new country. I didn't speak the language, and she was the first person who made me feel like I belonged. We went to the same schools, same parties, same college. She was in my wedding. She held my hand when my mom died. She was the first person I called when I found out I was pregnant, and I never not once thought she would hurt me. But there I was sitting in my car outside the gym, listening to her cry and apologize. She kept saying I must have mixed up the days. "I was just worried about you. I saw someone who looked like him and I panicked." I told her that didn't make sense. She described a specific scene, my husband kissing a blonde woman, my son in the car seat in the back. "You don't hallucinate that level of detail, you make it up." I asked her again, "Why did you say you saw this on Wednesday?" She said, "Because that's when you were supposed to be out of town." And that was the moment I knew she didn't mix up days. She waited for the day I was supposed to be gone. She had the story ready. She just didn't know my trip got canceled. I told her I needed space. She cried harder. She said she was lonely. She said I'd been distant since I got married, that I never had time for her anymore. I said, "You could have talked to me. You didn't have to try to destroy my family." She said she wasn't trying to destroy anything. She was just trying to make me see the truth. I said, "There is no truth. You made it up." I drove home. My husband was in the kitchen making lunch. My son was in his high chair eating Cheerios. I sat down at the table and started crying. My husband asked what happened. I told him. He went pale, then he got angry. He said, "I never liked her. She's always had a weird thing about us." I said, "She's my best friend." He said, "Was." I didn't argue. The next week, Sarah texted me every day, apologies, explanations, promises to get therapy. I ignored all of them. Then she showed up at my house. My husband answered the door. He told her to leave. She said she needed to talk to me. He said, "You had your chance." She tried to push past him. He blocked the doorway. I was standing in the hallway holding my son. I said, "Sarah, go home." She looked at me with this desperate expression and said, "I just wanted you to have more time for me. Don't you understand? You're all I have." I said, "That's not my problem." She left. I blocked her number. I blocked her on social media. I told our mutual friends what happened. Some of them took her side. They said I was overreacting. They said she made a mistake. I said, "She tried to end my marriage. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." The last I heard, she moved to another city. I don't know if she ever got help. I don't care. I have my family. I have my son. I have a husband who I know I can trust because I saw with my own eyes that he was home with me that day. And I'll never forget the look on her face when I said, "I was home all day." It was like she'd been caught, like the whole world stopped. And I realized that some people will burn you down just because they're cold. That's not friendship, that's possession. I'm done being possessed. I work at a coffee shop. I'm 17. I know it's not the most glamorous job, but it pays for gas and my phone bill. I've been there for about 6 months. It's a small shop, nothing fancy. On busy days, we're 3 people behind the counter and we all know each other's rhythm. That Friday in May started out like any other. Rush hour, nonstop orders, steam wand hissing, register beeping. I didn't even notice them at first. My coworker, this girl named Jess, nudged me and nodded toward a table in the corner. "Look at those two," she whispered. "They need a room, seriously." I glanced over and saw a couple making out, like full-on making out. The guy had his hand on her thigh. She was pulling at his hair. It was a public coffee shop and it was noon. I laughed and went back to making a latte. But then I looked again. And I recognized her. It was my girlfriend's sister. She's 24, engaged, getting married in July. I've known her for 2 years. She's always been nice to me, kind of like a big sister herself. She'd come over for dinner, we'd play board games, she'd tease me about being a kid, and there she was making out with some guy who was definitely not her fiancé. I froze. Jess said, "You good?" I said, "Yeah, just tired." I ducked behind the counter. I prayed she didn't see me. They left after about 20 minutes. I breathed out. I thought, okay, I didn't say anything, I didn't get involved. It's not my business. But then she came back. I think she forgot something. Or maybe she wanted to use the bathroom. She walked in, looked around, and her eyes landed on me. I was wiping down a table near the window. She stopped dead. Her face went white. She came over to me, grabbed my arm, and pulled me into the back hallway by the storage room. She whispered, "You saw me, didn't you?" I said, "No, I didn't see anything." She said, "You're lying. I saw your face. Please, please don't tell anyone. It's not what it looked like." I said, "I don't even know what you're talking about." She said, "We're not done." Then she left. I went back to work. My hands were shaking. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. I thought about calling my girlfriend, but what would I say? "Hey, I saw your sister cheating on her fiancé." That would blow up everything. I wanted to stay out of it. But I knew she saw me recognize her, and I knew she would tell my girlfriend something. I was right. That night around 9, my girlfriend texted me, "What's going on with you and my sister?" I said, "Nothing." She said, "She's really upset. She said you saw something you shouldn't have." She's crying, I said, I don't know what she's talking about. Then my girlfriend said, you need to come over, we need to talk. I said I couldn't leave, my parents wouldn't let me go out that late. She said, fine, we'll come to you, sneak out. I said it would be hard. She said, please, I was freaking out, I'm 17, I don't have a car, my parents are strict. If they found out I snuck out, I'd be grounded for a month. But my girlfriend was pushing and her sister was probably manipulating her. I knew I couldn't avoid this forever, so I texted back, can we talk tomorrow at my work before my shift? She said yes. I barely slept that night, I kept playing the scene in my head. The way my girlfriend's sister looked at me when she saw me, the desperation in her eyes, I shouldn't have to deal with this. I just wanted to do my job and go home. Next morning, I got to the coffee shop an hour early. My girlfriend was already there with her sister. They were sitting at the same table where the sister had been making out. I felt sick. I sat down, my girlfriend said, tell me what you saw. I looked at her sister. She was staring at me, eyes wide, almost pleading. I said I didn't see anything. My girlfriend said, stop lying, my sister told me you saw her with another guy. Then her sister jumped in, I'm not cheating, that was my cousin, we were just messing around, my fiancé knows him, it's fine. I knew that was a lie, you don't make out with your cousin like that, not the way they were doing it, but I didn't want to start a war, I said, okay, maybe it was your cousin, I don't know, I didn't really see his face. My girlfriend looked relieved, her sister smiled, but it was fake, I could tell they left, I thought it was over. But the next week everything got worse. On Tuesday my girlfriend called me crying, she said, my sister told me what really happened, she admitted it wasn't her cousin, she's been seeing this guy for months, she says you threatened to tell her fiancé. I said, I never threatened anyone, I didn't even say anything. My girlfriend said, she said you were blackmailing her. I couldn't believe it, this woman was trying to flip the story on me. I told my girlfriend I didn't blackmail her, I just wanted to forget the whole thing. My girlfriend paused and said, I believe you. But my sister is saying you're lying, she wants me to break up with you. I felt my stomach drop. We'd been together for almost a year, I thought we were solid. But now her sister was trying to ruin my relationship to save her own. I said, you know me, you know I wouldn't do that. She said, I know, I just don't know what to do, she's my sister. That Saturday, her sister posted on Facebook that she was so excited for her wedding. She put up photos of her and her fiancé from when they got engaged. I wanted to comment, are you going to invite your side guy? But I didn't, I stayed quiet, but my girlfriend's sister didn't stay quiet. She told her fiancé that I was spreading rumors about her. He called me, I answered. He said, I heard you're saying my fiancé is cheating on me, you better have proof. I said, I'm not saying anything. Ask your fiancé what she was doing at a coffee shop last Friday. He went silent, then he said, she told me you came on to her, she said you tried to kiss her. I laughed, I actually laughed out loud. I'm 17 and you're 27, why would I try to kiss your fiancé? That's messed up, he said, that's what she told me. I said, then she's lying to you and I saw her making out with another guy at my work, you can check the security cameras if you want. He said he would, I never heard from him again, but I heard from my girlfriend, she broke up with me the next week. She said her family was too divided. She said her sister had always been jealous of our relationship and this was her way of tearing us apart. I said, so you're choosing your sister over me even though she's the one who cheated. She said, I have to live with her, I can't just cut her off. I said, okay, I didn't fight it, what was the point, I was a kid, they were adults. And I learned a hard lesson, you can't help someone who's determined to burn you down. Her sister didn't just cheat on her fiancé, she tried to destroy my reputation, my relationship, everything. And she would have gotten away with it if I hadn't had proof. A few weeks later, I heard from a mutual friend that the sister's fiancé found out the truth. He saw a text on her phone. The wedding was called off. She moved out of state. My girlfriend reached out to me once, maybe a month later. She said she was sorry. She said she wished she'd believed me. I said, it's fine, I hope you're okay. We never talked again, I still work at the coffee shop. Sometimes I see couples making out in the corner. It doesn't bother me like it used to, I just think you never know what someone is hiding, and you never know who's watching. That day I learned that silence isn't always the safest option. Sometimes it's just the start of the fire. I never thought I'd be the dad sitting in a family meeting where everyone's screaming about a baby that might not be my son's. But here we are. Let me back up. My son, he just turned 16, he's a good kid mostly. He gets decent grades, he's respectful to his mom and me, but he's also a typical teenage boy. I know he's active. I've had the talk with him more than once and I gave him condoms myself. I told him, if you're going to do it, be smart about it. He said he always rapped. I believed him. He had a girlfriend, also 16, turning 17 soon. They were together for about 8 months. They seemed happy. But about a month ago, they broke up. He didn't give me details. He just said it wasn't working out. I didn't push. Then 3 weeks ago, we got a call from her parents. My wife answered. I watched her face go pale. She hung up and said, she's pregnant. She's about 3 months along. I felt like I'd been punched. We sat down, tried to figure out what to do. My wife was already crying, talking about how we'd help with the baby, how our lives were going to change. We waited a couple days before telling our son. I wanted to be calm. I sat him down in the living room, just me and him first. Said, son, we need to talk about something serious. Your ex-girlfriend is pregnant. He looked at me with this blank expression. Then he said, it's not mine. I said, how do you know? He said, because we never had sex. I didn't believe him at first. I know he's active. I've seen the way he acts around girls. I thought he was just scared. I said, son, if you did, you can tell me. We'll figure it out together, but you can't lie about this. He got angry. He said, "Dad, I'm not lying. We never did it. I cheated on her." I said, "What do you mean you cheated?" He said, "I was seeing someone else. That's why we broke up. She found out." I was furious. I yelled at him. I called him a shithead. But then I stopped. I thought about it. He said he always used protection. He said he asked me for restocks regularly. And he had that look in his eyes, the look he gets when he's telling the truth. I started to believe him. My wife didn't. She was convinced he was lying. She said, "Boys always say that. He's just trying to get out of responsibility." I tried to explain my reasoning, but she wouldn't hear it. She called me part of the boy culture, whatever that means. We had a joint meeting with her parents. It was awful. We met at a neutral place, a restaurant. Her parents were calm but serious. My wife started the conversation by accepting that our son was the father. She said, "We need to figure out funding, support, how to handle this." My son spoke up. He said, "It's not mine. We never had sex." Her dad said, "What do you mean you never had sex? She's pregnant." My son said, "I don't know how she got pregnant, but it wasn't me." Then he made a comment I had to rephrase later. He said they only ever did a certain act that can't result in a baby, and it was so unsatisfactory he never wanted to go further. I wanted to ground him for life for saying that in front of her parents, but I also saw his point. Her parents looked at their daughter. She was quiet. Then she said, "We only did it once that time." And she described a specific date and location. It was believable. My son said, "That never happened. I was somewhere else that night." But he couldn't prove it. We left the meeting with no resolution. My wife was furious at me. She said I was enabling him. Said I was just trying to get the truth. That night I had a heart-to-heart with my son. I said, "Look, if it is yours, we'll deal with it, but I need you to be honest." He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Dad, I swear on my life, it's not mine." Something about the way he said it made me believe him, but I also knew my wife would never accept that without proof, so I suggested a DNA test. Her parents agreed. My wife said it was a waste of money and time, but she went along with it. The test took 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were hell. My wife barely spoke to me. My son stayed in his room. I tried to keep things normal, but it felt like our family was falling apart. The results came by email. I opened it alone in my office. The result, 0% probability of paternity. My son was not the father. I called my wife. She came in. I showed her the screen. She stared at it for a long time. Then she said, "How is that possible?" I said, "Because he was telling the truth." She started crying, not relief, something else. I think she was embarrassed. She had been so sure, so vocal, and now she was wrong. I went to tell my son he was playing video games. I said, "It's not yours." He didn't even look up. He just said, "I told you." I sat down next to him. I said, "I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner." He shrugged. He said, "It's fine. Can I go back to my game?" That's when I knew he was hiding something bigger. I asked him, "Who were you cheating on her with?" He went quiet. He put down the controller. He said, "Dad, you're not going to like it." I said, "Try me." He took a deep breath and said, "It's a guy. His name is Alex. He's in my chemistry class." I didn't scream. I didn't get angry. I was just tired. I said, "Why didn't you tell us?" He said, "Because Mom would freak out and I didn't want to deal with it." I said, "Are you gay?" He said, "I don't know. I just know I like him." I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, "We'll figure this out, but you need to tell your mom eventually." He nodded. I left his room. I went downstairs and told my wife. She cried again, different tears this time. She said, "We could have handled this better." I said, "Yeah, we could have." A few days later, we heard that the ex-girlfriend found out who the real father was. Some guy from a party she went to after they broke up. She apologized to my son. He said it was fine. He was already checked out. Looking back, I'm glad we did the DNA test, but I'm also mad at myself for not trusting my son sooner. I guess that's parenting. You think you know your kid, but you don't always. And sometimes the truth is right in front of you, but you don't want to see it because it's easier to believe the story that makes sense on the surface. Now my son is openly dating Alex. My wife is still adjusting. She's reading books, going to support groups. She's trying, that's all I can ask. Me, I'm just happy my son is honest with me now, and I'm glad there's no baby to worry about. But I still think about that day in the restaurant, how everyone was screaming and how my son sat there with this quiet certainty. He knew he was telling the truth, and I almost didn't believe him. That's the part that sticks with me, how easy it is to doubt someone you love, how quickly you can become the villain in your own kid's story. I'm just glad I listened in the end. Sometimes that's all it takes. I thought my best friend had my back. Turns out she was trying to steal my husband. Let me start from the beginning. I'm 29. My best friend Sarah, also 29. We met when I was 11, just after my family moved to a new country. My sister-in-law introduced us and we hit it off instantly. We were inseparable through middle school, high school, college, and then adult life. She was my go-to for everything. When I met my husband at work, Sarah was the first person I told. She was my maid of honor at our wedding. She held my hand when I gave birth to our daughter 2 years ago. I trusted her completely. That trust almost ruined my marriage. I work in an office 9 to 2 most days with a 30-minute break at 11. I usually grab a second breakfast at a cafe near my job, or sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office to say hi. He runs a small business and he's always happy to see me. Occasionally I have to travel for work to another city. I'd mention it to Sarah in casual conversation, just like I mentioned everything else. Last Wednesday I was supposed to travel for work. But Tuesday night a red alert went out about severe flooding the next day. So my work trip was canceled and I stayed home with our daughter. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to make sure his business was secured, put up flood protection. By 7:30, he was back home making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We stayed home together all day, just the three of us. I didn't go anywhere, neither did he. At 3 in the afternoon, Sarah texted me, "Are you home already? It's flooding where you were supposed to travel." I texted back, "Home safe." We literally didn't leave the house until Friday. Saturday morning, same gym class as always. Sarah and I met in the lobby. She looked nervous. She said, "We need to talk in private." I thought it was about something serious, maybe her mom's health. She led me out to my car. She got in the passenger seat and took a deep breath. Then she said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out. Your daughter was in the car." I froze. My heart stopped. But then my brain caught up. I remembered Wednesday. I remembered the red alert. I remembered my husband at home with me. Our daughter was with us the whole time. I asked 3 times, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She confirmed it 3 times. "Yes, Wednesday around 11 in the morning." I asked, "During the red alert?" She said yes. Then she launched into a description. My husband making out with some gorgeous blonde Barbie lookalike parked somewhere, the baby in the back seat. She said she recognized his truck. She said she saw them through the window. I didn't scream, I just looked at her. I said, "Sarah, I was home with my husband on Wednesday. He was with me the whole morning. The baby was with us. He never left the house after 7:30. She blinked. Her face went pale. She said, "What?" "No, I definitely saw him." I said, "You couldn't have because he was making me eggs at 11. She started backtracking. "Maybe it was a different day." I said, "You said Wednesday 3 times. What day were you thinking?" She said, "I don't know, I must have mixed up the days." I said, "That's not something you mix up. You described in detail, you were sure." She started crying. She said, "I'm so sorry, I was just trying to protect you. I thought I saw him." I didn't believe her. Something in my gut said she wasn't just mistaken. I called my husband then and there on speaker. I said, "Honey, where were you on Wednesday morning?" He said, "With you making breakfast. Remember we had that red alert?" I said, "Yeah, just checking." He knew something was off. I said I'd explain later. I hung up. I looked at Sarah. She was still crying. I said, "Why did you lie?" She said, "I didn't lie. I honestly thought I saw him." But her eyes were shifting. I'd known her for 18 years. I could tell she was hiding something. I drove home. My husband was waiting. I told him everything. He was confused, then angry. He said, "Why would she make that up?" I said, "I don't know." We spent the afternoon trying to figure it out. I texted Sarah, "I need the truth. Why did you say that?" No reply. The next day, she sent a long message. She said she'd been lonely. She said she was jealous of my life. She said she wanted me to think my husband was cheating so I would leave him, and then she and I could be free to travel together like we used to. She said she didn't want me to be tied down by a family. I couldn't believe it. She tried to destroy my marriage just so she could have a travel buddy. She knew I had a 2-year-old. She knew my husband was a good man, and she lied about something that's serious. I didn't respond. I blocked her number. I told our mutual friends what happened. Some of them believed me. Some of them said Sarah must have been going through something. I don't care. I haven't spoken to her since. That was 6 months ago. My marriage is stronger now. My husband and I talked a lot about it. We realized how close we were to having that lie tear us apart. If I hadn't been home that day, if I had believed her, I might have confronted him. I might have left. I think about that every time I walk past a cafe where we used to meet. Sarah tried to contact me last month. She said she was sorry that she'd been in therapy, that she understood now it was wrong. I didn't reply. I don't need that back in my life. Trust is everything. Once it's broken, you can't just glue it back together. And when someone you love tries to burn down your life for selfish reasons, you don't have to forgive them. You don't have to understand why. You just have to walk away. I was 17, working a dead-end barista shift at a coffee shop near my high school. I'd been dating my girlfriend for about 8 months. Her name is Sam. She's sweet, funny, a little shy. Her older sister, let's call her Jess, is 24. Jess is engaged to a guy named Mark. They're supposed to get married in July. I've met Jess a few times. She's always been nice to me, but she's one of those people who's always on the go, always loud, always the center of attention. Mark is quiet, works construction, seems like a decent guy. I never thought much about their relationship. Then one Saturday afternoon, around 2 o'clock, the coffee shop got slammed. We had a line out the door. I was on register, my coworker was on bar. We were both sweating. I looked up to clear a table and there they were. Jess and some guy I'd never seen before. They were in the corner booth and they were full on making out. I mean, hands all over each other, tongues, the works. My coworker nudged me and whispered, "Dude, get a room, this is a coffee shop." I froze. I recognized her immediately. She was wearing a green sweater I'd seen her in at Sam's house. She had her hands in this guy's hair. He was muscular, tan, looked like he worked out, not Mark. I ducked behind the counter. I didn't want her to see me. I kept my head down, took orders, made drinks, pretended I hadn't seen anything. They stayed for about 20 minutes, then they left, still wrapped around each other. I thought the coast was clear. I grabbed a rag and went out to wipe down their table. I was just trying to act normal. That's when she came back in. She must have forgotten something, or maybe she was using the restroom. She walked right past me, then stopped. She turned around. Her eyes went wide. She knew. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back corner, out of view of the counter. Her voice was shaking. "You saw me, didn't you?" I said, "I didn't see anything." She said, "Bullshit, I saw you looking." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." She started crying, not sad crying, angry crying. "You can't tell anyone, you can't tell Sam, you can't tell Mark, this is none of your business." I said, "I'm not going to say anything." She said, "You swear?" I said, "I swear." She let go of my arm, wiped her eyes, and walked out. I thought that was it. I went back to work, but an hour later my phone started blowing up. Sam texted me, "What's going on with you and my sister?" I said, "Nothing." Why? She said, "Jess called me crying. She said you saw something and you're threatening her. What happened?" I said, "I didn't threaten her. I didn't say anything." Sam said, "She said you're going to ruin her life. She wants to meet tonight. Can you come over?" I said, "My parents won't let me leave. It's already late." Sam said, "We'll drive to your house, sneak out." I was freaking out. I told Sam, "I can't sneak out. My dad checks my room." She said, "Please, she's hysterical. Just talk to her." I said, "Fine. Text me when you're here." I sat in my room staring at the wall. I didn't know what to do. I told my parents I was going to bed early. I waited. At 11, my phone lit up. "We're in the car outside your house. Come to the end of the driveway." I put on shoes and crept downstairs. I slipped out the back door. I walked down the driveway. Sam's car was idling at the curb. Jess was in the passenger seat. Sam was driving. I got in the back. Jess turned around. Her eyes were puffy. "Listen," she said. "I'm sorry I freaked out, but you can't tell anyone. Mark can't know. Sam can't know. If you tell, I'll lose everything. The wedding is in 2 months. My parents have paid for everything. Please." I said, "I already told you I'm not going to tell anyone. I didn't say anything." She said, "But Sam knows something happened. She won't drop it. You have to tell her you didn't see anything. You have to make her believe you." Sam was silent. She was gripping the steering wheel. She looked at me in the rearview mirror. I said, "Sam, I didn't see anything. Your sister is overreacting." Sam said, "Then why is she crying? Why did she call me saying you saw her cheating?" I didn't know what to say. Jess started talking over me. "He's lying. He saw something, but he's confused. It wasn't what he thinks. I was just talking to a friend." I said, "You were kissing him." She snapped. "You said you didn't see anything." Sam yelled, "Enough, both of you shut up." We sat in silence for a minute, then Sam said, "I'm driving home. I'll deal with this tomorrow." She dropped me off at my driveway. I went back inside, didn't sleep all night. The next day I called Sam. I told her the truth. "I saw Jess making out with a guy at the coffee shop. He was Mark. I don't know who he was. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to get in the middle." Sam was quiet, then she said, "I knew it. I had a feeling. She's been acting weird for months. She's been going out late, lying about where she's been. I just didn't want to believe it." I said, "What do we do?" She said, "We tell Mark." I said, "No, I don't want to be the one. He'll hate me." Sam said, "I'll tell him. I'll say I saw it. It's my sister. It's my responsibility." I said, "Okay." I felt relieved but also sick. That night Sam told Mark. He didn't believe her at first, then he confronted Jess. Jess denied it. She said Sam was lying. She said I was lying. She said we were trying to break them up for some reason. Mark called me. I was at school. He said, "Did you see my fiancé cheating?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Who was the guy?" I said, "I don't know his name. Tall, tan, muscular, brown hair." He said, "Does he work out at the gym near her work?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Thanks." The wedding was canceled. Jess moved out of their apartment. She stayed with Sam's parents for a few weeks. Sam and I didn't talk for a while. She blamed me kind of. She said if I hadn't seen anything, maybe Jess would have come clean on her own. But she also knew it wasn't my fault. I saw Jess one more time about a month later. She was at a gas station. She saw me and crossed the street to avoid me. I didn't say anything. I heard later she moved to another state. Mark is doing okay, I think. He deleted me on Instagram. I don't blame him. As for Sam and me, we broke up 3 months later. She said she couldn't look at me without thinking about that night in the car. I get it. But I still think about how one moment, one harmless shift at a coffee shop can blow up someone's entire life. And I was just a kid caught in the crossfire. I didn't ask for that. I just wanted to do my job and go home. But that's not how life works. Sometimes you see things you can't unsee, and once you see them, you can't pretend you didn't. That's what I learned. And I'm still not sure if I did the right thing, but I know I couldn't have done anything else. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I had to choose between my wife and my son, but here we are. I'm 43, married for 20 years, 2 kids. My oldest, let's call him Jake, just turned 16. He's a good kid mostly. He's got that teenage arrogance, thinks he knows everything, but he's not a bad person. He had a girlfriend, Mia, who's 16, almost 17. They'd been together for about a year. They broke up about a month ago. We didn't think much of it. Teenage relationships end. It happens. Then about 3 weeks ago, we got a call from Mia's parents. They wanted to meet. My wife, Sarah, and I went over to their house. They sat us down in their living room. Her mom was crying. Her dad looked like he hadn't slept in days. They told us Mia is pregnant. She's about 8 weeks along. She's starting to show a little. The dates line up with when she and Jake were still together. My wife went into full panic mode. I did too, if I'm being honest. We went home and waited a couple days before telling Jake. He didn't know. When we told him, he just stared at us. Then he said, "It's not mine. I never fucked her." I didn't believe him at first. I knew he was active. He asked me for condoms before. I'd given him the talk, made sure he knew the risks, but he kept insisting. He said, "Dad, I swear we never did it. I cheated on her." That caught my attention. I asked him what he meant. He got quiet. Then he said, "I was messing around with someone else, but it wasn't a girl. It was a guy from my swim team." I sat down. I didn't know what to say. He started crying. He told me he'd been confused for a while, that he'd been hooking up with this guy for about 2 months. They always used protection. He said he never went all the way with Mia because he wasn't really into her that way. He said they only did oral stuff, which he knew couldn't get her pregnant. He sounded genuine. I believed him. My wife didn't. She said I was enabling him, that he was lying to get out of responsibility. She said, "You're part of the boy culture. You think your son can do no wrong." I told her that wasn't it, I just believed what he told me. We argued for days, both families met again. My wife started the conversation by just accepting Jake was the father. She was already talking about funding, about maybe helping with the baby, about what we'd do. Mia's parents were relieved, but Jake spoke up. He said, "It's not my baby, we never had sex." He was angry, then he said something that I'll never forget. He said, "We only did oral and it was so bad I never wanted to go further." I wanted to smack him for saying that in front of everyone, but it was also kind of believable. Mia got quiet, then she said, "We did it once, it was after homecoming, you were at my house, my parents were out, you know the night." She described the when and where, it matched. Jake got pale. He said, "No, that's not what happened, we just made out." Mia said, "We had sex, you used a condom." Jake shook his head. "I didn't, I swear I was with Alex that night." That's when he came out to everyone, to Mia's parents, to his mom. To me again, he said he'd been with Alex that night. Alex confirmed it later. Mia's face went white. She said, "Then the baby isn't yours." My wife exploded. She screamed at Jake for lying, for hiding his sexuality, for making everything complicated. She said, "You're just saying this to get out of being a father." I told her to calm down. She turned on me. "You're taking his side because he's your little prince. You don't care about that baby." We left. Jake was quiet the whole ride home. That night I sat with him in his room. He said, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier, I was scared." I said, "I understand, but we need to figure out who the real father is." We pushed for a paternity test. Mia's parents were hesitant but eventually agreed. It took 2 weeks to get the results. They came back negative. Jake is not the father. Mia's parents were devastated. They started asking Mia who else she'd been with. She broke down and admitted she'd been seeing another guy from a different school. She was pregnant with his baby. My wife didn't apologize. She said, "Well, at least we know now." But she still resents me for taking Jake's side. She says I undermined her, that I made her look foolish in front of Mia's family. We haven't been sleeping in the same room for a week. Jake is doing okay. He's still dating Alex, but they're keeping it quiet. He's more open with me now. He told me he's glad I believed him. I told him I'll always believe him until he gives me a reason not to, but the fallout with my wife, I don't know if we'll get past this. She thinks I chose him over her. I think I just chose the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, but I'd rather hurt than live a lie. That's what I keep telling myself.